So this will be a quick little rant video in my car, like normal. But yeah, it's been a few days since that horrible, horrible tragedy in Toronto, and it came out like that same day or about the same time that it was carried out by an incel. In case you're living in a bubble or under a rock, an incel is someone who is involuntarily celibate. So it's usually in the context of a man who is sexually frustrated, but who at the same time has the sense of entitlement, like that they're entitled to have sex. And, it's not this whole sexual entitlement shit, it's not just for men either. I noticed that women and, some of the quote unquote non binary people, also buy into it, but uh, it's different. But what I what I'm trying to say is that for a long time, we've known about, incels being an issue. Not saying that, being sexually frustrated or being a virgin or being autistic or depressed or, you know, not a tall man or anything like that, or not skinny, like fat. Not saying that those are all bad things, but when, you see incels co-opt those, reasons as to why they're not getting laid, it's problematic for the people who are getting laid. And now I'm not trying to say that I'm some uh chick magnet. I don't even like that phrase, to be honest, but in this context, I don't really get a lot of dates. But, I know that it's not a big deal that, entitles someone to cause harm, But unfortunately, there are people who do take, rejection personally to the and internalize it to the fact that their, personalities reflect the toxicity of their, beliefs, their attitudes, and this causes a lot of different issues, especially in the context of, relationships. But I'm just talking off of the top of my head right now. But I'm just saying that, it wasn't a surprise that, because, I have been critical of these incels. I mean, while I understand, issues like with, you know, not getting laid that much, I mean, it's not a big deal. At least for me, it's not a big deal. And I think our society conditions people to think it's a big deal if they're not having sex or they're not, cool or popular, whatever. But, it's just sad because then people are radicalized into this ideology pretty much. And it's a problem because then people go take it to the extreme where they end up killing people. And I said this back in 2014 after the Santa Barbara incident that what Elliot Rogers had done was a despicable act. And that even though he, you know, I'm not going to shift the blame for anyone but himself and his shitty attitude, his actions, but there's something to be said about how society has promoted these ideas with regards to, how people, especially young men, view relationships or view sex in modern discourse, in modern society, rather. So it's something I've been investigating for about a year now, and unfortunately, this happened, a few days ago. And, when it first occurred, people always speculate as to the motive, whether it was white supremacy or whether it was Islamic terrorism. But in this case, it was because the guy who did it couldn't get a date or couldn't get laid. And I'm guessing he had spent a lot of time on the different internet forums where, you know, I know that this may sound cliche, but it isn't. That these forums are really echo chambers for these toxic attitudes. And what I believe should be done, rather than, you know, wash our hands of the issue altogether and forget about it, just think about it for a little bit. And, keep in mind that there are people out there who are, upset. It's reasonable to be upset if you're not fuckable, but for fuck's sakes, people, when you get to the extreme of wishing to harm people, that's when you have to take a step back and really do some solid introspection. And I'm not talking about this whole, I like, this is my impression. I have been looking at it, and it looks like it's all the faults of the quote unquote sluts and the quote unquote chads in the world. Because that's not true. It's not because of them. You know, you're your own worst nightmare or your own worst enemy. And believe me, I've been saying this, you know, in this context for a long time. But my point is that we've known that incels, and the ideology behind being an incel, which it is, us, like, with regards to, the beliefs and whatever, the basic incel narrative, we all know that it has been traced back to and formulated in these echo chambers. And, I'm not going to say, all incels are bad, because, there are people who, might not know of any other word. And I'm guessing that there should be a word for people who, are not the best with dating, I'm not. But in this context of having this guy, or anybody really, but this guy in this case, go out and murder people because of something so insignificant, I wouldn't think twice of even really worrying about it personally. And this is coming from a guy who, and I'll be honest here, I wasn't, really sought after by the ladies, believe it or not. I know, hold the shock. But seriously, I think that these incels should take a step back, look at why they're not getting laid, instead of placing the blame on others. They can look into what they can do to improve themselves. And I've read their conspiracy theories online, and they're a paranoid bunch. They make Dennis Hopper look completely, trusting. I mean, that's how, not insane, but kind of insane, paranoid, neurotic. Not to demonize people with mental health issues or anything, but just saying that their issues, it's something that, it takes more than a 10-minute video to cover. It probably will take an hour. But I'm just saying that if you consider yourself an incel, ask yourself why you consider yourself an incel. And, you can always get laid. There are always, prostitutes, sex work you can try to use. I know in some countries, some places, it's, illegal, or, it's very expensive because it is illegal. But besides that, I'm just thinking of the fact that I, have observed these incel groups online and these anti-incel groups online. And the thing I've realized is that the incels, they're willing to dox anyone. Anyone who, goes against their narrative. And while I wasn't really doxed, I had my photo taken off of my Facebook profile, your profile picture, and it was posted on Imgur, some sort of photo sharing website, and it was like the people who were the incels were all like, "Oh, I bet this guy's a virgin. I bet that is this guy autistic?" Because I had a filter over my profile picture that says autism acceptance, and the guy was like, "Oh, I'd assume so." Which, yeah, I'm autistic, but I'm not a incel. And while there's nothing wrong with being a virgin, I am not a virgin at all. And, I do have friends, unlike what they assumed about me without even knowing me. And, though, really, friends, fake friends, yeah, but mostly acquaintances, am I right? Anyway, so I really thought it was very funny that, they would go after me and they would assume that I'm an incel, which, if you get the incel stereotype, then I look like it. But in this case, I'm not. I'm not an incel. And these people assuming I am, and it's like some of the, even some women online were like, "Oh, are you an incel?" Because I was talking about something about legalizing or decriminalizing prostitution, in the United States and like all the states of the Union. Because, the same with like gambling, drug use, and really drinking for people who are 18 instead of, having a drinking age of 21, which, if you can go to war and die at 18, 19 years old, then there's no reason why you can't enjoy a nice, refreshing beer. I Now I just want to drink right now. Anyway, I know I've been going on for about 13 minutes now, but it's just something I had on the top of my head. It's not really a quick rant, it's more of a long rant. But at this point, I don't care because I am just interested but yet terrified of these incels. For fuck's sakes. I am very fucking terrified of what their next, move would look like. And I'm not saying that there will be a move, but let's face it, inevitably, what happened in 2014 with Elliot Rodgers, you know, leaked its way throughout the internet, and then, and we know about it, after the past almost 4 years. And then we know about this guy who just did it out of, his hatred for women and, sexually, attractive men. Not That's not just the only thing that people, when it's about being an incel and incel attacks, it's, they focus mostly on the women, and, with good reason, because the majority of incel rhetoric attacks women and is highly misogynistic. Highly. And I'm not saying that as, someone who, throws around the term misogynistic, lightly. But they are heavily misogynistic in terms of their ideologies and their actual rhetoric online, and certainly their actions, unfortunately. But yeah, the incels are no fans of anyone who have enjoyed a dick or a vagina or anything of the sort. Anyone who's had sex, anyone who has had a partner. It's just interesting, these incels. But anyway, be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, be sure to share this and piss off an incel. And I probably will get death threats now. Bye!